So we got to a point where we can introduce lifecycle methods and stuff into our application. So last time I put the to-do app, we did some really minor modification to the code, and now it works perfectly. Well, obviously it has its limitations, but it's just a simplified clone just to have a feeling how Fiber works. So now we are kind of ready to move on to the next phase, which is lifecycle methods, as I said earlier. And before I dive into well, in the actual code, I talked a lot about render phase and painting phase, and that's gonna be quite important with the lifecycle methods, as some of them are called in the render phase and some of them are called in the painting phase. So well, the React docs is a great place if we wanna have some sense of, if you like to make some sense how the lifecycle methods get called, the order of them, and we basically cover some of them, like the constructor and render, if like we can consider render as a lifecycle method, but it was absolutely mandatory to introduce render because that's the place where we can get our not JSX but the already transpiled React elements back. So render is absolutely happening here. So before render we have the constructor, which is like obvious. We have the create state node function runs before render, but we don't have the component in mount and the get derived state props, and that is the initial render. And we have the updating, so we have render, but we doesn't have any of the other. So that we kind of need to fix, and we have unmounting, which is on deletion basically. But before we dive into any of this stuff, let's talk about like where rendering ends and where painting starts. We already talked about this, so pretty much that is the line when we assign the pending commit to the currently executed Fiber. So when the pending commit is not null, then the work loop will pick it up and start committing everything onto the DOM. So that's where the painting phase starts. So so yeah, the let's talk about the updating part. So the get derived state from props, which is a static method, is gonna get called in the render phase. Should component update in the render phase, render obviously render phase. Well, and this is in quite an order, right? So get snapshot before update in the painting phase, but just before committing the changes, and component did update happens after the commit is done. Okay, so let's stick with I think probably one of the easiest thing would be should component update, right? So let's start with should component update, and in order to do so, let's just go back to our code and get into the client and try to prevent something from re-rendering. I just don't know what we should try to prevent from re-rendering. Maybe the whole main app, so whatever we do, it's not gonna get re-rendered. So we can do something like should component update, and I mean it receives the next props and next state. We can check the docs, but I think all of us use this quite a lot. So I mean it's not like an often used method, but if you need to do some serious performance optimization, then and if you're not working with immutable data structure where reference equality equals like equality, then that's pretty much the way to go for it. And it needs to return false, right? So, but at the moment, obviously, well, it's quite disturbing. What just happened here? Created, okay. Okay, well, I don't know what happened. Anyway, so it does nothing because it re-renders when I created something, it re-rendered. Okay, so we need to prevent that from happening, and to do so, we need to call this should component update just before render, right? So should component update doesn't prevent you from creating new state and new props along the way, but it just simply doesn't re-render a thing, right? So the internal state will be modified, its props will be modified, but now what we need to do is const should render, and we need to have the state node because that's the instance, and we need to call should component update with the next props and the next state. And so the next props are the fiber.props, because the alternate tree, which is the current tree, what we can say in this line of code at this time of execution, and we also have the next state, which is the fiber state. Now the problem is with our code that if you remember, so that's the next state, but the problem is that we already modified the instance. So if you just if we were to write a should component update at this point, and we want to do something like this dot state blah 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 blah, whether it equals to next state blah blah blah. So the problem is that since at this point in our implementation we already modified the instance state, this dot state will be pointing to the kind of next state. So we are not preserving the previous state. So what we need to do is we can calculate the next state, like let next state equals next state equals I don't know, let's just put it an empty object, or even not assigning a thing there. But what we need to do is we need to modify this, so it's just going to be next state, and the point where we assigning to fiber dot state node dot state is either going to be next state or fiber dot state. I mean, there are more elegant ways to do it, and we will be doing it later, but simply the point is that we calculate the next state if there is a partial state, so that's fine, but we don't want to assign it to the instance itself, because otherwise when you call it from the instance, that this will be pointing to the next state, so you're comparing to next state instead of you comparing to this state with the next state. And this is the same for this one, so the assigning to the new props should absolutely happen afterwards. And if we have an update here, not in the reconcile children, so element dot alternate props should be element dot props. Yeah, that might be problematic or not. No, because it's alternate the state node, so it has the old props there still, so we're not assigning to okay, so I think it should do fine. So we are putting it to the new, so the new props and the new state. No, the new state is next state, and we kind of returning the should render, and we should only call reconcile children if yeah, so if should render then call reconcile children, which will create the fibers out of these elements. So yeah, the problem is that it gets called on mounting. Yeah, it gets called on mounting, and should component update, I think it's not, it doesn't get called on mounting. Not sure. Should component update, yeah, it's just an update thing. Update can be used, yeah. Okay, so to fix, yeah, there are a lot of things that we need to fix. Okay, so a lot of things that we need to fix. One of them is so this should render should depend on the fiber effect tag equals placement, then simply return true, otherwise evaluate this expression. Okay, so it's not get called on mounting, only on update. Okay, so now it prevents pretty much everything from happening. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much good. Okay, just let me think about, so reconcile children. Okay. So we have, so this is pretty much the case where we will call should component update. Okay, let's get rid of the should component update here, or just simply put it to true. Fiber statement should component, I think it's because we don't have a default should component update on the prototype, which we should fix. So should component update, and it should simply return true. Okay, let's check if I create something here in the create to do, like should component update return false. no, not this, but that's interesting. I mean, input still changes, although it's a controlled component. On change. Anyways, that's probably a separate issue. So I wanna put should component update here to false. No, that's the other one. Okay. Okay, let's modify the to-dos for now to class-based component. To-dos extends component and render return this JSX, comment these out, and instead of props it will be this.props. Okay, good. So I presume create to do should component as false. Get rid of this, put it here. Create to do. I just want to make sure that this updates. I mean, it must be updating, but I just want to make sure it does. So create to do is here. So create to do. I don't know how to do that. This.state, for example, is a state.input. Maybe if I do that, yeah, it changes. But okay, so this gets re-rendered, but none the other. Okay, then it might be worth checking out if the state changes, even if it doesn't get the re-render. So what I just want to do is put should component update false back here, return false. But I wanna, so yeah, the problem is that it's not gonna render, so it's not gonna run the render function. It's not gonna run the render function, so but it will run the, but it's not re-rendering any event listeners either. Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, other thing is we can have the next props and the next state, and let's return true. I just want to console log these two out, that if it receives the thing that we're expecting it to receive. One on next state. That's interesting. Its state is undefined. Wonder why it is. I think we might need to initialize the state to this.state or an empty object maybe. Nah, it's not the problem. So why it is undefined? Yeah, because of this map of undev next state. Next state should be fiber state node. dot state. Yeah. Okay, now we're getting what I wanted to have, so that's good. And what if I console log this dot state? Yeah, this dot state differs from the next state. So yeah, I think that works pretty well now. Let's get rid of the should component updates. We don't need them now. So now everything is just props is not defined. Reference error. This dot props dot to do. Okay. Okay, good. And I also don't need this part. So we have the native should component update implementation. We have the next state. We have partial state. Okay, so let's clean this up a bit. Next state should render okay, I think actually we might be able to maybe create a different function. Anyways, so I can rewrite this into ternary. So if partial state, then simply get it into here. Then we don't need this one. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that is should component update. It basically prevents calling the render method. Okay, so it's done. What else? I just wanna. There's one thing I'm curious. It will be. Okay, that's gonna be a properly terrible implementation. I'm just curious what's gonna happen. So let's assume we have a let should render, which will be set to false, and it will be should render equals to should render. Okay, and what I'm going to do is should component update return this dot props. It's not gonna work. Okay, sorry. I will experiment later. I'm just curious about one thing, but I think that's an edge case. So should render is not defined. What the heck? Yeah, because I should be deleting this part. Okay, so point is it's working. It's preventing the stuff from re-rendering. So let's move on to the next stuff, and that's gonna be the last life cycle that we're gonna cover. The next stuff will be get derived state from props. Let's try to do this one. So get derived state from props. If I have to write in an actual implementation, that would be something, it's a static method, get derived state from props, and it receives the props and it receives the state that is currently on. And the way it works is, based on the props you can modify your state. Based on the props and based on the current state you have, you can modify your state just before render. So return some new arbitrary state. Probably it will be better where we actually have a state. So for example, let's call nullify, and it's true now. So what I can do is, if nullify, then return to-dos, just an empty array no matter what, and otherwise return state. So now we are modifying our state based on the props, and I think it will throw an error. No, so it's not. Yeah, because we're not calling it. Okay, so that's a static method, so you don't have access to anything here in the blueprint. So okay, the way to access this thing is, so this is that's where actually I don't really like the object-oriented way of doing things like this. So since it's not an instant method but a static method, then you can't access it like fiber.state no.get derived state from props, but instead you need to go to the type declaration, which is the type. So yeah, so I think it's gonna be there. So fiber, let's state on the type. Let's just console log this type dot get derived state from props. No, we're not calling it. Just let's save this as a reference and console log gout. So I expect it at least once to see something other than undefined. So yeah, we have the function back. So yeah, that's the way to access it if it's a static method. So it's, so just imagine that like static method is so static stuffs are like common among all instances and all it's common, not the instances, because instances are created by the blueprint of the class. Even if we are talking about a prototype or language, the new class like syntax is kind of make it like that it's being created from a class. But like static fields and static methods are shared across all instances, and you can have only one. So this guy get derived state from props, no matter how many instance React creates it, this will be the same, whereas the instances might differ. They can have different states, they can have different props, but yeah, so that's the static stuff. By the way, like if you declare default props or prop types, this is basically the same thing. It's a static method, or what we did with the create React instance. That's like a static stuff. Anyways, so the focus is not on why it's static or why not. I think it's just to limit abuse of this function and not be able to have access to the like either to the instance field or to the instance methods, if I have to guess. But anyways, that's not the purpose. So the problem, I think we start have problems once we are getting calling these, because we have undefined as well. yeah, so if I call it now, it will throw an error. Yeah, so currently nullify of undefined. Okay, so I need to provide the most up-to-date stuff, I presume. So fiber and fiber state, I think that's okay. Now the problem is that it is not on the component, so I think I might have to put it here, component that get derived state from props equals and it should return something like this. Yeah, okay. So it's the same thing as using the static keyword inside the class, just another way of doing it, but it achieves the same thing. Okay, so now we called it, we console log down, so we nullify is null. Okay, and this way there is one more step. Yeah, so actually I should check the docs, because that's one thing, like I don't know, I mean, been using React for quite a while, but I don't know if get derived state from props gets called before should render. I suppose it does, because I think that get derived state from props should come before should render, so the modified state should be put on to next state instead of calculating the next state, because yeah, that makes absolutely much more sense, but let's just check it. So get derived state from props, yeah, it gets called before update. So yeah, that's actually huge importance, because like this can change the return value of should component update. So maybe the derived state will give us back a different result from should component update than the normal state. So what we need to do is we need to grab this part, and what we should have is we should be feeding the next state here, and the props from here calculate the results. So that's gonna be this is gonna be G, and then the next state will be next state and G, and now we can pass next state onto the should component update. I think, we'll see, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. It should have been, yeah, okay. So now, yeah, I think now it's good, because according to the stuff we have nullify, and nullify just nullifies everything. So now if I create this, I should not have a thing, because it always nullifies things. So get derived state from props runs on every upgrade, but because we have nullifies of prop, it returns every time a to do that is empty, and when we get to the render function, that's what's being rendered. Okay, I think the get derived state from props is working. So like derived state. Okay, derived state. Okay, let's actually get this nullify out. Yeah, I think this bug, I'm pretty sure that is because for some reason the input is still not a control component, although I thought it was. I need to dig into that, but yeah, that's not the problem of this fiber kinda stuff. So it works just fine, even if when the component doesn't declare get derived state from props, and if it do, it works fine because it returns the other branch. So nullify equals false, just to know what's happening there. Okay, I think this is more than enough for one video. So we covered the should component update and the get derived state from props. So they are both before a render, and the get derived state from props is called upon a mounting, but the should render skips mounting, and the way we do that is we checking the effect. If it's placement, then we just simply returning true. Okay, so next time we can do component did mount, get snapshot before update, and component did update. Okay, thanks for listening guys, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.